What is up, guys? I'm Shiva.
I'm Sean.
And welcome to the Just Things podcast.
We're going to have multiple series. This is the Just Question series where Shiva and I just ask each other questions, kind of bounce off of each other and just see where it takes us. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into it.
Let's go. All right, so this is the Just Things podcast. This is where Sean and I just, talk about things, and we're going to have multiple series in here. We're starting with the Just Question series where we just kind of relay questions that we have and just go off of that from each other. And I'm Shiva. We're college graduates, and I am a religion and anthropology major. And why I mention that is because this will probably kind of shape my perspective on these questions and, what we talk about and whatnot. And Sean, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sean. My kind of background perspective is in the sciences. I'm actually starting in this fall, I'm starting medical school. So that'll be interesting, fun, and I kind of have that, scientific, logical, kind of structured approach to most things. So I think it's a good combination of perspectives kind of bouncing off of each other here.
Okay, so let's just jump right into it, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we brought some questions along, and I'm just going to go ahead and go first. I want to jump in hot. I want to talk about virtual reality specifically in the movie industry. What do you think is going to look? What do you think the movie industry is going to look like in terms of virtual reality in the coming decade and whatnot?
So we're already seeing a shift towards how HBO Max is releasing movies. It's in theaters, but it's also in HBO Max and things like that. So I'm curious if there's a couple of ways to approach that, where it's is it going to be a virtual reality in the sense that you and your buddies could all put on a cheap, headset and all kind of sit there in that aspect? Or would it be there'd be maybe a new version of a movie theater where you walk in and maybe there's seats or pods or whatever, and you all put it in that way. Maybe there's more of that 4D, surround sound, whatever, but then you're also in the movie, which I think could be I think there could be a creative aspect that the directors, or maybe they make a new position for movies like this, where you could say there's a transition that you have no control over, right? Where it's you're a civilian on the street and Thor's flying above you, or maybe you are Thor through his eyes, right? And you're looking down and kind of maybe you're the one crashing through the building. So I think it's definitely a possibility, especially with how quick, because I think technology in general is very exponential, right? So it's not like a plateau. We're not just every 10 years coming up with something. It's so fast. And so now, even in our lifetimes, we had virtual reality just a couple of years ago. It was really expensive, but then now, a couple $100, you're getting the top of the line Oculus or whatever it is. And so I think it's definitely a possibility. And I think it'd be really neat to see how people that have those creative artistic minds in the movie industry, Hollywood and stuff like that, kind of approach that. Or maybe they don't, maybe it's something that they just don't see a market for, or maybe they just don't see the practicality of making sure everyone has access to the sets, or maybe equipping the new theaters with it. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? How are you, when you think of that question, how are you approaching it?
Okay. So first I want to address some of the stuff you said, right? So yeah. You're right. We're seeing a shift ever since the pandemic started, with more online streaming of movies rather than going to movie theaters. And everyone's talking about how, movie theaters are going to die and whatnot. And you talked about how virtual reality might end up in movie theaters. And I think that's a cool idea. And I think people are going to want, because people go out for entertainment,
yeah,
right? So that is a sort of entertainment. But also, I can see a stronger shift towards, rather than that, more so home theater style, movies and whatnot. So I see a shift in that department, and I think that's kind of cool because like you said, we could start seeing different perspectives in movies, with Thor and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And that kind of reminds me of Bandersnatch. You saw?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So and with Bandersnatch, it's you pick a certain point to go in the movie, but rather than that, with virtual reality, you could become one of the characters.
Yeah.
Right. And rather than you have choices, it's more your choice is already dictated. Maybe if we move on further where, we end kind of with video games where it's kind of free for all, kind of movies is going to maybe shift in that kind of way. So we might see things okay, well, you get Thor's perspective in the movie, or you're a bystander in a city while like something's going down or something like that.
So you're saying maybe it starts as an observer, and then maybe as it kind of progresses, there could be that Bandersnatch Black Mirror aspect where maybe you can make a decision?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's, like you said, it's exponential. So I think, it's not going to leap from A to Z.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to first see, like the 4D type thing where you're kind of just observing and you're experiencing things. Like, let's say you're watching a movie and there's a group of people in a canoe. You're going to be sitting in the back of the canoe or something. You kind of feel like you're there, but you don't really have any, what's the word?
You're still the audience.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're not in the front of the canoe. You're in the back, so you can see everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have much autonomy.
Yeah,
right?
there
With,
you go.
Working around with your surroundings and whatnot. And I think the movie industry might even shift towards where you can start interacting with people.
Yeah.
And that we can already see it. Like, I don't watch this all the time. It was a while back, but I saw a couple, right, where like there's like, I don't know, it's on Snapchat or social media where there's like kind of interactive journeys already. So this is like this interactive movie type of style is already happening.
Yeah.
And I think virtual reality is just gonna kick it into high gear.
Well, because you have, I don't know, like, like when you're on like those commercials where the people are on the bikes, right? And they're like, okay, there's a hill coming up and like the resistance gets higher. Maybe the bike leans back a little bit. And there's that kind of like, I mean, this is very elementary in terms of what we're talking about. But I mean, if you're seeing it in something like that, and if that's enjoyable, if people are consistently coming back to, the Peloton bike or whatever that has features like that, who's to say? Because I think it also adds an aspect of rewatchability, right? If you're in the back of that canoe and you're watching and you're, going down the river, well, what if there's like, maybe two canoes, or maybe it's just the one canoe, and now you are in the front, right? So now you're getting splashed in the face with the water. You're getting, again, in this aspect, I doubt you're going to actually get physically splashed.
Yeah.
Maybe not in our lifetimes. But then, I mean, I don't know. I think there's definitely an aspect, and thinking like from the perspective of the people that's trying to make money off of this, not only do you have to like, probably purchase the headset, or maybe there's like a promotion where like you buy our movie, we give you a headset or something like that. But if you did some sort of, because we're seeing, subscription services coming up where it's like prescription. That's my medical.
Yeah, the doctor and you came out.
OTC. But like where there's a lot of these subscription services coming out. So maybe it's something where it's like, you subscribe and then the rewatching is extra 50 cents or something, or actually like, from this perspective, or you get like the key perspective for paying 75 cents, or something where they can like, because I mean, in a capitalist world, there's going to be somebody trying to make money off of every little thing, or, middlemen or what. So, I don't know, I think that's like definitely something in our lifetimes we could see happening relatively soon. I mean, 20 years, easy, I could see going to, in your house, everybody put your headset on, you kind of, explore it that way. I
mean, that's the thing, right? With, like you said, with capitalism pushes competition.
Yeah.
And we saw this huge shift, right? Like companies they either adapt or they die.
Yeah.
We saw that with Best Buy. Best Buy should have adapted long ago.
Yeah.
I can name so many companies. Like Toys R Us should have adapted long ago to more video games and online style. Kids stop playing with toys as much.
Yeah.
Right. So, and let's go back to Best Buy, right? So Best Buy didn't adapt. Netflix took over. It took them a while because they were first.
You mean Best Buy or Blockbuster?
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Blockbuster. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Best Buy's still going.
They're thriving. They're the ones selling the PS5s.
Yeah. So Blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
So, Netflix took a while by like shipping, CDs and whatnot, and then they became an online service, and that was revolutionary.
Yeah.
And that's what pushed them to where they are today as, one of the top online streaming services. And people are trying to catch up. People are trying to beat them, capitalistic competition.
Yeah.
But I think whoever can... And like I said, adapt or die, right?
Yeah.
So, that's like the anthropology in me coming out.
Yeah.
But if you don't adapt, and I'm sure of it, I'm certain that virtual reality will take over, especially in the movie industry.
Yeah.
So if they don't adapt to that, they're not going to thrive. And honestly, Netflix seems very progressive, but, companies hesitate with adaptation. I don't know why. Maybe it's expensive. Maybe they don't see the value in it because, you have to drop so much money for something that might not work. But, you have to keep adapting, or there might be a new service that comes out that's 10 times better than Netflix because they offer this virtual reality that people enjoy more than just watching a 2D movie.
Yeah. Well, plus you also have to like think about the market for these things. So Netflix appeals to you know, 0 to 100, right? Because you have Coco Melon, right? For all these kids that are like, you know, like just glued to the screen.
I watched half of that.
I haven't seen it and I refuse to.
Really? I was intrigued. I had to.
You had to experience it.
It's very creepy.
Okay, yeah, okay, well, because that's the vibe I got. I saw like a little clip on the YouTube one time, and I was just like, I was sitting there, and I was just like, my kids will never.
Yeah,
you know?
They look like claymation characters that don't actually speak.
Yeah, they're smoothed out.
Yeah, it's
like
really creepy.
Dude, and I mean, have you seen the views they have like on YouTube? No. Like hundreds of millions. I think if you told me that like collectively they were in the billions of views, I'd believe you in like 2 seconds. Wow. You would not have to convince me at all. I mean, it's wild. Yeah, it's really wild. But yeah, so like with Netflix and like the market and stuff like that, like especially if they're quick to adapt to, let's say, you know, 10, 20 years with virtual reality, I mean, they'd be right on the money because they'd still have all of that audience together. They have the action, they have the romance, they have the comedy, they have everything.
Well, now they started even producing their own movies.
Yeah, and they're good.
Netflix originals and stuff.
They're good.
They were bad at first.
They were bad.
Did you see that? Yeah, and they're getting better. You know, they're getting people like Adam Sandler, you know, all these people, and you know, they've entered a market that was extremely difficult to enter.
And they have like those foreign, like Money Heist, right? I mean, it's a show, but it blew up, and everybody I haven't seen it personally, but my sister loves it. And everything I've heard from people that have watched it, I've never heard negative aspects about it. But I believe it's Spanish. I like Hispanic, Spain, like kind of like actual, and you know, subtitles, everything. But it's just a solid, you know, plot and everything going on that people are just tied to it, no matter if, you know, they're like, I hate subtitles. It didn't really matter because it was so good. Yeah. Right. And I think that Netflix, I mean, they did go into like what? Like, I think the number, I could be wrong, but $22 billion in debt, just rapidly producing and hiring and doing all this stuff. Yeah. But in the end, they're still making money. Yeah. Because then you get in that whole, like, it's cheaper to have debt than to owe. Right.
I mean, we've seen the same shift already with things like, what is it? Like Paramount Views and like Warner Brothers and stuff, right? Yeah. They used to dominate the industry of the movie theaters and movies. Yeah. Right. You would see them always at the beginning. Yeah. Fox, right? The credits and stuff. Yeah. And stuff like that. And I think, you know, with like Warner Brothers, they have so much, you know, money. They didn't adapt to the shift of how movies are going to be. Yeah. You know, and, you know, they could have started early on online, like streaming service. They could have, you know, and it's all about adaptability. And I think people, especially in companies, they think they like can't outreach. Like they don't want to deviate so far from like what they do. Yeah. Yeah. You know? And like they don't want to try something new. So I think, you know, if they could have been a big competition with Netflix, you know, and same thing. So like going back to this whole virtual reality, right? So I think it's whoever takes that first step, and it's going to be a hard fall. Like you're going to, you have to get up. You're going to scrape your knees. It's going to be like a tough one. Like I think right now, like Oculus is like the only like legit like number one known video like virtual reality.
Relatively affordable as well. Yeah.
So you know, and they don't have, as far as I know, I'm not a huge gamer, but like have that much competition yet. Yeah. And same thing with like movie industry. I think the movie industry hasn't really done much yet. Yeah. If at all. But you know, Netflix already branched out into, you know, choice, autonomy movies, right? Like you have a choice. So, and that was a huge hit. Everyone was so intrigued because no one's ever seen that before.
It was so new. Yeah. And I think one of the first, I guess, ways or phases maybe that we'll see this is partnerships with existing virtual realities, right? So like with Oculus, it's gaming. So, you know, you're in it, you're turning, you're shooting, you're whatever, you have the little controllers. But who's to say, I mean, even if you wanted to add choice right off the bat, I mean, you've got the controllers and stuff. So boom, we partner with Oculus. Maybe we give discounts, right? You know, it's incentive that way. And then just say, hey, boom, you buy Oculus, you get 3 months free of this new subscription service. And it has all these crazy movies, right? So like we saw the shift to Disney Plus where Disney took all their stuff, put it there, and because Disney's so successful. Yeah.
They bought Hulu.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And then, well, there's that, now you can have like ESPN, Hulu, and Disney is like one
Disney
bundle.
Bought ESPN too, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, if Disney's low-key a monopoly, dude.
Like, well, if we want to talk about how scary some of these, you know, monopolies are, Disney's up there. And honestly, Google. I could see, Google. I could see Netflix, you know, buying out Oculus rather than working with them, you know.
It's probably cheaper, low-key, I could definitely see it being cheaper, for sure. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add on this question? I think it's just so intriguing to think that, like, you would be a character in the movie.
Yeah. And you could even, like, I don't know, maybe like beforehand, like maybe if you're choosing your perspective, right? You could just sit there and just be like, okay, you know, boom, boom, boom. And maybe you could even, maybe speaking from more of like an anthropological like side, like something that you identify with better, right? Like, so, you know, I'm white, so maybe I'd pick like, how would a white guy see that? Or maybe I'm curious as to some other ethnicity would portray that. And hopefully, you know, the movie portrays it accurately or in a way that's productive, so to speak, that I mean, you could even speak to modern issues with it, right? You could even talk about things like racism, maybe not explicitly, but in an observation role as someone who you might not have that many things in common with, and kind of see it through that perspective. I mean, again, hopefully the companies like that would do it in an accurate in a way, and not try to, you know, I guess I don't want to say brainwash, but not try to like alter the perspectives of somebody in a false way, which all these big corporations tend to have a habit of doing, right? So I don't know. I think there's so many avenues that you can take this, and I'm very curious to see, because I think we will see it in our lifetimes. I'm very curious to see which avenue explodes first. Is it that, because I mean, currently in our political climate, is it that, you know, more progressive cultural, like where we can talk about somebody who you don't identify with, you observe in that perspective. Maybe it's pure entertainment where, you know, you are Thor flying through the building, or maybe it's something like that. And I'm very curious to see whoever does decide to tackle this first, how they do it, and if it's successful. I think it's really cool. Yeah.
We'll definitely have to have a more broader question on virtual reality in like another episode. Yeah. Right? Because like you said, there's so many endless avenues. And you mentioned election, and that got me thinking like, oh, like, you know, first it started with radio, was like revolutionary
Talk
to
show.
American democracy. And then it became TV, you know, and, you know, documentaries, and like we're progressing forward. What if virtual reality, nobody shows up to like actual, you know, what is it?
Rallies
and stuff, right? So no one actually shows up anymore. First, that saves you time and money, but you could have 1 or 2 or 3 showings straight, like you just stay in your room. Yeah. You know, you just put on the Oculus glasses or whatever, and boom, you just grab a seat and you sit down in this virtual reality and you're there. Or, you know, like, same thing for like if you're at a concert. Yeah. Music. Who knows? Like virtual reality gives you like an endless possibility of where you would go with that.
But you know what's scary about that? You've ever seen WALL-E, right?
Yeah.
Dude, imagine that like sedentary lifestyle, right? Like you don't go to the rally, you don't go to the concert, you're just in your bed with those goggles on. I mean, let's be honest, us being in those floating chairs, you know, 400 pounds minimum floating around. I mean, that could be real. Again, that's my medical side, like just, you know, because getting up and moving and going out is such, right? With movie theaters, we were talking about like getting up and going to a movie theater, whether you can watch it at home or not, is it's an event. Like, hey kids, let's go. Hey, you guys want to go to the movies? You know, students get, you know, $4 off. You know, there's all these different like things that kind of like, let's get out and do something that I think that's definitely going to be one, an obstacle to jump over. And if it is jumped over, I think there would be a worry towards that lifestyle, just kind of just like sitting down. Like we saw it with COVID, right? People were getting depressed. People were getting stuck inside because I mean, rightfully so. Like you don't want to go outside and have a possibility of dying, depending on your age group and predisposition or medical history, whatever. And so, I don't know. I think there's so much that can happen and there's so many concerns, but also crazy, awesome things you could do with it that, I mean, that's definitely like, that's wild. Yeah. Definitely wild.
I think that actually is a really good transition to your question, right?
Yeah. So like kind of just bouncing off of that, we were kind of on this theme of movies and, you know.
Yeah. For this episode.
Yeah. And how, what are movie theaters going to look like? Right. Cause I think I agree with you when you're talking about, people are going to they're going to lean towards that home aspect, right? They're going to want to stay home, order in, whether it's to save gas or they don't want to deal with other people, especially in times where we're worried about COVID and things like that. You know, who's to say another global pandemic doesn't come along or something like that. I think there will be a shift in our generation, at least, towards that aspect. So I'm curious, how will movie theaters be able to adapt? Because we're already seeing that they kind of can't. Yeah. And so 10, 20 years, where will physical building movie theaters be?
I think with your question, it seems like it's 2-part, right? One, what is going to happen in movie theaters, right? Ever since this pandemic started. And 2, if they can, how will they even adapt?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So first, you know, I think movie theaters are on the brink of extinction. just from the way they are right now, without adaptation. I think that nobody is going to want to go sit in a gross seat.
Yep.
You know, and they were starting to adapt a little bit. We saw things like lounge chairs and recliners and stuff. People are offering, you know, bar service and food service now, like waiters standing by and whatnot. And I think that's very interesting. But like you said, I think people really enjoy the home aspect of entertainment. Yeah. You get the comfort of your home. You can dress however you want. You can eat whatever you want. And you don't have to pause. You can pause. You don't have to deal with people. Arguably, it might even be a better experience. You know, you have a small room or big room, however you set up your movie theater, but your home media theater, and you just have surround sound and like lights and whatever you want. Yeah. Right. You could have the most comfortable couches. You could get some blankets. Like, it just seems like most people, at least with movies, I think people would more enjoy going home than going out. Yeah. But that being said, there's also a nostalgic part of going out and going to movies, right? So, you know, liquor stores exist. People can grab drinks, go home, drink with friends or whatever. But bars are still thriving. Yeah. And it's all about the atmosphere that the bar brings. And people, you know, I've been guilty of it myself. People pay, you know, extreme amounts for cocktails when it's so much cheaper to buy an entire bottle and go home and make your own cocktails. Yeah. But you're not paying just for the drink. You're paying for that experience and going out and like being in this atmosphere. Yeah. So I'm curious to see, how would a movie theater adapt to give you that same great experience?
Well, I think if we go back to like the adapting kind of concept here, I think when they moved towards like the food and the kind of like the cocktails and the services that they're now probably, because I mean, remember that's how they make money. That's why popcorn's, you know, $500, right? It's because they don't they don't make money off those tickets. Those tickets, that revenue is straight to the you know, the producers and the movie companies and stuff. And so it's interesting to see that they saw, okay, hey, where are we making money? And can we continue to use the resources we have to kind of draw people back? And I think they did successfully do that with places like Movie Tavern and Studio Grill and things like that, where it's, hey, come in, eat. Also, maybe because, I mean, they're already dropping the prices of the tickets a little bit, right? You know, there's places by where my parents are where it's like $18 per ticket. But if you go to the places where you can eat, it's $12 because they're expecting you to buy that $12 cocktail or that, you know, $15 nachos or you know, stuff like that. And I think it was interesting to see that, you know, kind of adaptive mentality that they had. But I think you're right. Where do you go now, right? Other than, because you have food, you used what you had, and you're trying to bring back revenue that way. You've upgraded your seats to recliners to, you know, have tables, maybe more cup holders.
And that being said, man, I don't think food's enough. Exactly. Especially if virtual reality takes over and these movie theaters are trying to incorporate virtual reality, if at all. Yeah. Nobody's going to eat while doing virtual reality. Just, you know, it's just inconvenient. You can't see what you're eating and whatnot. So food wouldn't be enough either.
Plus, what would a movie theater provide outside of a place to sit? And why would a movie theater be more comfortable to a certain extent, right? Like, maybe you go out and you're like, maybe I don't have a recliner. Like, but do you really want to sit in a recliner that bad that you're willing to drive out, pay for a movie ticket, pay for food that you could somehow maybe attempt to eat, like take your goggles off for virtual reality? Or, you know, why would you ever do any of that? Like, I would much rather pop the goggles on, eat. I could even, you know, Uber or DoorDash something in, save the money on gas, save the money on the trip, save the time.
I'm glad
PJs, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I was gonna ask. You know, you've listened to Gary Vee.
Yeah.
He talks about convenience all the time, right? With DoorDash, with Uber, it was convenient. Yeah. People shifted because of convenience, right? So why would you go out and inconvenience yourself when you could stay home and DoorDash something or Uber Eats something, right? And you can make your own cocktails or whatever. Right?
Save money.
You save money. Yeah. You feel more comfortable at home.
Save time.
You save time. And convenience is everything, right? Yeah. Gary talks about how he thinks, you know, voice command is going to be the future as well, right? So you'd be like, hey, Alexa, order me some, you know, chicken fried rice. Yeah. And it'll just, you know, that's it. Yeah. Boom. 5 seconds. You know, and convenience is everything. So you have to, the movie theater industry has to figure out a way they can provide a convenience that you wouldn't get at home.
Yeah. And I don't think
that's
they
really
can.
hard.
Because I can't, I mean, thinking of how movie theaters have adapted up until now and how they're kind of failing to do so now,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see, I personally don't have an option that they could take
Mm-hmm.
that, especially, you know, this is assuming virtual reality does take over, which I think is a safe assumption. But, you know, so like, what do you truly bring in this? It's, I mean, my only like, you know, saving aspect to maybe say would be some sort of maybe like Japanese way ahead of its time, futurized kind of like, you know, internet cafe, right? There are people actually go to internet cafes, sit down, computer, because maybe they don't have the latest graphics card or the latest CPU or something. And so they'll sit down and they'll, you know, play these games here, and, you know, they always come back because it's an event, right? It's going out. It's that entertainment aspect. And unless you could provide something that's so, I don't know, instantaneously almost modern and accelerated to that aspect, I just don't think there's enough time for them to catch up to ever do something like that, especially with virtual reality. I think they're just going to die out.
I think there's two ways of them saving their asses on this, right? We have option one, they adapt. So adapting by, you know, providing something that you can't get at home, which the only thing I can see at this point, and maybe we're talking at this point where there's this technology that we weren't even expecting that comes up out of nowhere, right?
Yeah,
and
it's all Elon Musk.
So like at this point in time, from what we know, from our knowledge of how technology is going and what is going to be coming in the future, I could see one saving grace would be 4D, because people aren't gonna, unless you know, some company offers it an easy installation way where you can experience, you know, the blossoms of a, you know, a tree or some water getting splashed at you. But that seems very difficult. Yeah. Because you would have to have all that already incorporated into your system. And that's like endless possibilities of like scents, you know, water, you have to keep refilling water, all that. Yeah. So I don't know if that will ever be incorporated in home theaters.
Well, we're kind of seeing that fail already, right? Have you been to the an aquarium or something where they have like that 4D experience where like little things touch your legs? Lame. Yeah. I mean, it's like $15. You do it for 30 minutes. You walk out, and the only people that enjoy it are the 6-year-olds, right?
Yeah. So either you double down on that, right? So you double down and make that a really crazy experience you couldn't get at home. You know, the chairs are moving. You know, I went to Animal Kingdom in Disney a while back, Disney World, and they have this ride, Avatar. You've seen Avatar, right?
Yeah. The blue people one?
Yeah,
okay.
The blue people. Yeah.
The good one. What's up?
Yeah. Low-key, I think Airbender was better. But...
Okay, well, it's just iconic. It's just, it's pure...
That's fair.
Yeah.
Nostalgic.
Oh,
but anyways,
so
there's this amazing simulator. You sit on it. It's like a motorcycle, right? And you sit on it, and there's these pads that touch, like, the inside of your thighs. It's like a motorcycle.
Yeah.
But they breathe. So it's a dragon ride. You're like on the dragon.
Oh, what?
And it simulates this breathing experience of the dragon while you're sitting there.
That's kind of cool.
And it's the most gorgeous. Gorgeous. I hate simulators.
Yeah.
Like, because they're just not very fun, and I don't really, personally really enjoy a lot of them. But that one was absolutely amazing. Yeah. So if they can incorporate things like that, like different rooms have different experiences. Like if this maybe Fast and Furious 15 comes out, and it's like a car. It's literally a car. It's like a movie theater room of a ton of cars, and you just sit in with your friends. Yeah. And it really feels like you're like in it when the cars are turning. You're like, you move, you jerk around, or motorcycle, or the dragon breathing thing that I talked about. Giving you experiences you can't see at home is one of the ways. And two would be just taking a leap of faith and jumping in a new direction.
Oh, right? Just completely.
So, completely. So Malco and things like that, right? They're pretty big. I don't know if this pandemic has caused them to go like close to bankruptcy or not. I don't know. But from what I remember, they're pretty big company. And if they can spare the money, just shut down this movie theater idea and jump to a whole new direction of either production value or online streaming value or into virtual reality. Otherwise, they're just going to go bankrupt.
Or at least have something, right? Like it reminds me of, it's same logic, but like it reminds me of like, if you start like a whiskey distillery, right? You won't ever really make money. That's why a lot of like new distilleries or companies or whatever will make gin and then just sell gin or vodka or something until they can get, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, and they can have the new, Shiva Sean, 40-year whiskey, single malt, whatever.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds the same. Maybe them hopping over in a completely new direction with something that's more current, like an online subscription service or something like that, could be their gen. It could be we're constantly making money. Now let's put that into researching what's new or developing new technology and being or trying to be one of the first ones to kind of leap ahead of everybody else, which I think would definitely be a very, cool idea.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Movie theaters are going down a wrong direction. I think they just have to adapt. I don't think they can. I sound like a broken record. I keep saying the same thing, but it's just so true. I don't see any other option than figuring something different out because, I think home theaters are just going to be the next huge thing.
Especially with how cheap TVs are getting now, dude. Like, I mean, shoot, when I was a kid.
Yeah. Wow. Projectors are even cheaper.
Yeah. And how you can have something that has like, flat screens are like paper now.
Yeah.
Or even like, when I was a kid, they had the big clunky, whatever things, but now it's $400 for an 80-inch smart 4K U whatever. And, it's not going to take many people that long to save up for that. If that's something they really want to do. And then you put that in and now you've got this awesome experience. I have, they actually have like really good sound in the TVs themselves. You don't have to go crazy surround sound if you don't want to. Yeah. So for $400, one-time purchase for the next, I don't know, let's say 7 years, you're getting that same, atmosphere. That's why would I keep spending $25, $30?
Seriously, as being broke college kids, right? I got my 50-inch TV for $150. It took me some time, but I found a good deal. Yeah. And then I bought this surround sound system I have for $60. And I was a little hesitant, right? Because you want to spend good money on sound. Because I realized, better quality, more higher price, better quality. That's just at least in the sound industry and stuff, right? So I was a little hesitant on the $60 because it came with 5 speakers and a subwoofer. Yeah. So I was a little hesitant, but the thing sounds great. Yeah. It sounds great. So for like $200, I got myself a surround sound 50-inch TV.
I mean,
like,
and you can just continue to use that for who knows how long. I mean, because things are moving pretty fast and exponentially, but I mean, if it's good quality now, it's going to be good quality for at least enough years that makes that purchase worth it, right? No, for sure.
And like curved TVs and stuff like that, just adapting, innovating. That's just
I stand by that makes a difference. The curved TV? I stand by it because when I think about it, like, I don't know, maybe a physics aspect or angles or geometry, whatever you want to call it. If you're sitting, let's say you're sitting even maybe a little to the right, to the left, or maybe in the center, wherever you're looking, it's, theoretically perpendicular to your vision. Whereas if it's flat, if you're not looking directly in the center, you're getting those angles. But if it's curved, wherever you're looking theoretically is perpendicular and it's straight on. And so I think there's even a scientific aspect that kind of makes those curved, smart, really thin TVs kind of like appealing and honestly better.
Have you seen the curved monitors?
I have one.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah. It's great.
Dude, awesome.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like 2560, 1 millisecond response time, and then it's curved. Yeah. And so, especially if you're like really close to it, you're just like moving your head everywhere, and then you're just like, doesn't matter. Perpendicular view, boy. You're just looking around.
This is probably a good time to say, this episode is brought to you by Sam's.
Aces Hardware.
Lowe's Hardware Store. Buy today.
We get our wood from Twisted Trees. Our lumber's trash. If we ever blow up, this is going to be terrible. We have to clip that.
Yeah. We get sued.
It's like a new Spotify deal happens for $10 million for these two med school student anthropologists, and they're losing it all.
They actually made $10 million and was sued for $15 million.
So, sorry, boys.
Okay, so I guess this kind of pushes us to the last question I had.
Yeah, let's get specific.
Let's get specific, right? We went from the broad understanding of virtual reality with movies. Yeah. Then we went to the idea of movie theaters and how that's going to portray out. Right?
And how they're just going to fall. Let's be honest. That's the conclusion we came to.
Coming down,
it's gone.
Unless they, take some of the advice that we've even said in this. Change up.
Why aren't they listening to us? Hold up. CEO. Ring. Let's go.
But, so, my question, even more specific, is, let's go into movies specifically. What did you see Godzilla versus Kong?
Of course I did.
Yeah.
I was waiting to see who would win at Battle of the Titans. Come on.
I think it's crazy, right? There's a few things. One, it's nostalgic.
Oh, yeah.
Two, the graphics were insane.
So, honestly, way better than I was thinking.
And three, I think this brings full circle on the idea of virtual reality. What do you think? How did you think virtual reality would have played out in that movie?
I think. So again, we don't want to spoil anybody for spoil it for anybody that doesn't see it.
So spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen it, like, don't listen to this part.
Yeah, just don't. We don't even care about your views anymore. Just go ahead and log off for us. Yeah, we don't even want that.
Goodbye.
But I mean, of course, to stay abroad, Kong versus Godzilla. There's a lot of them actually fighting, which I think was lacking in whatever the last movie was, where there wasn't a lot of action between like the big monsters. I believe it was Kong. I could be wrong. Yeah. But there was actually a lot of battles between Godzilla and Kong, and a lot of destruction and mayhem and different. We'll stay broad with different environmental scenes that had a lot of opportunity to be detailed and gorgeous, and they followed through. And so I think it'd be really cool that, again, if there was a virtual reality aspect to that. I mean, maybe you're Kong, maybe you're Godzilla, maybe you're the deaf girl that is signing to Kong, and Kong's she's the only one that Kong listens to. Maybe you're on the ground 4 feet tall, looking up at this massive titan. So cool. And maybe you're watching the battle from that perspective, or maybe there's some sort of even like neutral observer perspective, or maybe you're not even a specific person, but you're like, let's say a drone or something like that has that kind of more distant but still close,
like a bird's eye,
where you're just moving around the battlefield like smoothly, like you're not chopping between scene to scene, frame to frame. You're just like this smooth, consistent, just moving around, kind of getting all those details and stuff like from all these angles. I think that's going to be an absolute bitch to animate, but I think if they could do it, I mean, something like especially Godzilla Kong for having what I thought a fantastic movie and kind of just bringing that aspect to it, I think they could see massive success, but they would have to keep that same quality in that more 3D aspect. Then I think that'd be difficult to do. But I mean, let's be honest, the talent we're seeing with current animation, people could do it. Especially teams of talented people like that. Absolutely could do it.
What would be really cool is you saw the movie. You saw how the movie had, and a lot of movies do this, there's like multiple different groups of people and they're all having different storylines and it connects at the end.
Yeah.
What would be really cool is if you're with a group of friends and you're all in different sections of that movie.
Yeah.
So you only experienced, being like with the mom and the deaf girl. Yeah. Or you were with that like crazy guy who was like,
Bleach and
the Bleach guy and whatnot. Right. So you're in with different groups and like you don't get to see any other side. It's kind of like Bandersnatch plus virtual reality.
And you could just sit there and redo all those perspectives. And I mean, you can make a day out of it, right?
Yeah. So like you said, it'd be a bitch to edit.
Yeah.
But imagine how many hours of viewing that movie could give you.
Yeah.
That would give you, because we've started to see this with social media. Everything views is everything. Views is what pays people.
Views, likes, comments.
Speaking of which, totally check us out and give us a rating and whatnot.
We know we told you to log off earlier, but go ahead and come back.
Come back. But like, think about it, right? So each storyline, let's say there's 4 different groups, and that movie was long, but let's say the movie was like 2 hours. That's 8 hours. Of view time.
Just 4 different perspectives. You kind of just.
Bandersnatch was 5 hours if you did the whole thing.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow. I
if
never
you
went
did
through
every
it all.
option and you just wanted to see how everything played out. 5 hours.
See, and that's appealing.
And a lot of people spent the time on it.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, because that footage, honestly, like, if you do it in a certain way, that footage could already exist, right? And they just don't cut it out, right? Because, there's like, hundreds of hours of shooting that they cut down to 2 hours for a movie. But then you start adding these choices, it's almost making their time and effort worth more. Right? Because then you can have these aspects where it's like, okay, well, what happened if, Kong threw a left instead of a right, like, or something like that. And you could see maybe like, butterfly effect. Does that change anything?
And like, I think the hardest part of that is obviously, graphics and whatnot, that's going to be insane, but also like script writing. I think there'll be a lot of script writers. And I think the best way to approach that would have to be like, you have separate groups. Like there's not one director, there'd be like 5.
Yeah.
So if there's 5 groups, 5 directors, that way you can simultaneously shoot a ton of different scenes and everybody's focusing on their part. And then, bring that shit together at the end. Yeah. I think that'd be so
Assuming those directors aren't full of themselves enough that they would be willing to work as part of a team, which, I'm sure if they're willing to, if they'll have the same passion for projects like that, like, I think it'd be really cool. Like, you ever see Parasite?
No.
You never saw Parasite, the Korean film?
No, I haven't.
Oh, Lord have mercy, dude. You really need to see that. But do you know the plot?
No.
So it's essentially there's a poor family and a rich family, and the poor family is essentially a parasite on the rich family. So basically, one by one, they are getting jobs as like housekeepers, tutorers, whatever, in this rich family's house, and basically using that to get money in because they're really poor. But I think it'd be really cool in something like that to maybe like you watch the movie through the rich family's perspective, right? And then you watch the movie through the poor family's perspective. But the whole time you don't know, like you were saying, like you wouldn't know what the rich family's, thinking or doing outside of the interactions with your perspective from the poor family. And I think that'd be really cool. Although you just definitely need to see that movie, by the way.
Like that, there's so much artistic possibility with that, dude, because you watch it. Okay, I have a couple points, right? So you watch a movie and you always see every side. So the suspense is killed when everyone's like, where did Jimmy go? But in the last scene, you saw Jimmy jump into the river and he's like swimming or some shit.
I'll float too.
Yeah. you're like, okay, like I know where Jimmy went. Like that suspense is gone from me, but like they don't know. But if you could actually like only incorporate with certain groups, that's
what on earth is that? I swear if I die, I'm going to be pissed.
That sounded like it was like a bomb or a gunshot.
Or like a fall. So this is the last episode, first and last episode.
It's like the little beep, like the
Amber Alert, we're gone.
But yeah, I think that'd just be so cool if you were with different groups and that suspense is just maintained.
Yeah.
And like, you're like, whoa, what happened? And then you just jump to the next one. Like you're rewatching this movie another day or something and you're like, oh my God, this is where Jimmy went.
Yeah.
Like, like you didn't know. You watched an entire 2-hour movie and there's going to be holes in that. And that keeps suspense. And suspense keeps you watching.
Exactly. Because we're already seeing that. I mean, the new Justice League, right? It's 4 hours long, but there's people that are like, yo, it's so good. I didn't mind watching the 4 hours. Or although it was long, maybe I split it up, but that's still 4 hours total time, right? So we're already seeing a shift towards these longer, I guess, movies or entertainment that people aren't necessarily minding, especially, full circle for bringing it back to that home aspect where they have the ability to pause or, play or stop, go to the bathroom, all these different things that I think it'd be really cool to see, like, since that aspect of this kind of, issue or theme or whatever is already happening and people are okay with it. I think you could definitely see that shift towards different perspectives that although it is 4 hours 5 hours total time coming through, I don't think people would mind it. And I think with that kind of cliffhanger holding of suspense, they could definitely be productive in that. That'd be crazy.
All right, guys. Well, this is probably the end of the episode. I appreciate you guys watching. This is the first episode. Let us know what you guys think. Leave a comment in the Apple Podcast. Hit us up. We'll have our email contact or whatever in the episode description. Let us know how we're doing, any topics you want us to cover. And you have anything else to add? I'm just like, don't be afraid to, bring up weird topics. I mean, I was talking to Shiva, of course, off mic, and we were talking about anything from music to bleached buttholes to, COVID to whatever. I mean, it's not, don't worry, we already have our list of our own, but we'd be awesome to add some more to it. Yeah, all we're going to do is talk about just things, Yeah, just things. You guys heard it here first. Yeah, you heard it here. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace out. Peace.